Later, I stepped into our apartment, my heart racing with a mix of exhilaration and dread. The weight of my decision pressed down on me, but I felt an odd sense of liberation. Daniel was in the living room, his face lighting up when he saw me. That familiar warmth in his eyes only made what I was about to do harder. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Daniel's smile faded. He must have sensed the shift in the air. "What's wrong, Mary?" I took a deep breath. "I've made a decision. About our marriage?" His brow furrowed with concern. "What do you mean?" "I'm opening our marriage," I stated, the words tumbling out before I could soften them. "This is happening, and you have to accept it." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched as Daniel's expression changed, morphing from confusion to disbelief, and finally settling on a look of utter devastation. It was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. "If that's your decision, then there's nothing left to discuss," he said after what felt like an eternity. His voice, his voice, it was hollow, devoid of the warmth and love I'd grown accustomed to over the years. For the first time, I saw the full extent of the damage I'd caused. The man standing before me wasn't my Daniel anymore. He was a shell, broken by my selfishness. A part of me wanted to take it all back, to rush into his arms and beg for forgiveness. But another part, the part that had tasted freedom with Tom, held me back. I couldn't unring this bell, and some twisted part of me didn't want to. "Daniel," I started, not even sure what I was going to say. He held up a hand, stopping me mid-sentence. "Don't. Just don't." I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself. The thrill of Tom's touch, the excitement of sneaking around, it was intoxicating. The next day after our kiss at the bar, I found myself in his office, heart pounding as he locked the door behind us. My mind tried to rationalize it. Daniel hadn't fought back when I told him about opening our marriage. Maybe he was okay with it after all. I pushed away the nagging guilt, focusing instead on Tom's hands roaming my body. This was my sexual awakening, I told myself. I deserved to explore. Over the next few months, I threw myself into this new lifestyle with reckless abandon. Tom was just the beginning. Soon I was meeting other men too, reveling in the attention and excitement. I barely noticed how Daniel had changed, how he'd withdrawn into himself. When we were home together, Daniel was like a ghost. He'd nod politely if we passed in the hallway, but the warmth was gone from his eyes. No more loving touches or deep conversations. I was too caught up in my own world to really see it. One morning, I was getting ready for Tom to pick me up. I thought Daniel had already left for work. The doorbell rang, and I hurried to answer it, eager to start another thrilling day with my lover. But when I got there, Daniel was already at the door. Tom stood awkwardly on the doorstep, clearly not expecting to see my husband. Daniel's voice was light, almost joking, as he said, "So, you're the guy screwing my wife." My stomach dropped. Tom tried to laugh it off, but the damage was done. For the first time in months, I really looked at Daniel. The pain in his eyes was devastating. But I pushed that feeling away, convincing myself this was all part of our new arrangement. I grabbed my purse and left with Tom, leaving Daniel standing alone in the doorway of our once happy home. I stumbled into our apartment, my head spinning from too many cocktails with Tom. The night had been a blur of laughter, touches, and whispered promises. But as I flipped on the lights, something felt off. The stillness hit me first. Daniel's keys weren't on the hook by the door. His shoes weren't in their usual spot. "Daniel," I called out, my voice echoing in the empty space. No answer. I made my way to the kitchen, craving water to wash away the taste of gin and regret. That's when I saw it, my favorite mug on the counter, a folded piece of paper peeking out. My hands shook as I unfolded the letter. Daniel's neat handwriting swam before my eyes. "Mary, by the time you read this, I'll be on a plane to South Africa. I have taken a 5-year work assignment. I'm sorry for the abruptness, but I couldn't bear to say goodbye in person. I never forgot your betrayal. I tried to forgive, to understand, but the pain was too deep. When I return, we'll begin divorce proceedings. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. Goodbye." Daniel. The mug clattered to the floor as I saw what else it held, Daniel's wedding ring. The metal clinked against the tile, the sound echoing like a death knell for our marriage. I sank to the floor, letter clutched to my chest. For the first time since this mess began, the full weight of what I'd done crashed over me. I'd gambled everything, a good man, a stable life, a future. For what? A few thrills with Tom? The illusion of freedom? Sobs racked my body as the reality set in. Daniel was gone. Really, truly gone. And it was all my fault. Years have drained by like water through my fingers, years I've spent in a fog of regret and self-loathing. Tom and his affairs became a shadow of passion that never could sustain me. Nights with him were a blur, a distraction from the void I carved out of my own life. Now, the aftertaste of all those failed escapes hangs heavy, bitter in my mouth. I stare at the dingy walls of my tiny apartment, cluttered with unpaid bills and empty wine bottles. Dust particles float in the streams of light breaking through the grimy windows. This isn't how I envisioned my future, not by a long shot. Years ago, Daniel had been a light, a rock, someone who loved me wholly without restraint. I can still see his tender smile, feel his reassuring hand on my back. It's a sick twist of fate, knowing that I pushed away the one anchor that kept me from drifting into the void. Not a day goes by that I don't think of the day he left. The crispness of the letter pulled me into harsh clarity more than his words ever could. That moment shattered me. Reality stripped of all illusions, leaving me bare to the consequence of my decisions. I kept Daniel's wedding ring in a small, cracked jewelry box. Strange how something so solid can feel like ashes in my hands now. It's been 5 years since he flew to South Africa, 5 years since he vowed to divorce me, and now he's back. I got a terse email from him stating that he'd be dropping by to finalize the papers. Just one more formality to extinguish the last flicker of our broken bond. When the doorbell rings, my stomach clenches. For a moment, I look at the wrinkled reflection in the bathroom mirror, trying to summon some semblance of the person I used to be. It's pointless, the hollow eyes staring back mock me. I open the door and there he stands. Daniel, older, wiser, looking every bit the man more seasoned by life. There's a calmness to him, a serene one. His blue eyes scan the apartment briefly before settling on me. "Hey, Mary?" It's strange to hear his voice again, almost like a voice note from another lifetime. He steps inside, noticing the mess. There's no judgment in his gaze, which paradoxically makes it sting more. I gesture to the old couch, and he takes a seat. He's here for business, for closure. He hands me a manila envelope stuffed with papers that will end our marriage officially. "I've already signed," he says, his voice even almost emotionless. "I just need your signatures in a few places." We sit at the coffee table, the silence between us pregnant with unspoken words. As my pen hits the paper, I feel the weight of every mark, every scratch pulling tight the thread of our past. This is at the end of everything we built. Before I know it, tears blur my vision. The pen slips from my fingers, rolling off the table. I can't hold it back any longer. I fall apart in front of him, the dam breaking after years of trying to maintain some semblance of strength. "I'm so sorry, Daniel," my voice cracks, barely recognizable to my own ears, "for everything. I ruined us, and I never stopped regretting it." He only watches, his expression a mosaic of empathy and detachment. For a minute, I wonder if he feels any pain seeing me like this. But then I recall, this is the bed I made. What he says next cuts through my sobs. "Mary, I want you to get help. Let me pay for your therapy." A jolt of surprise mixes with the desperation of my tears. Even after all the damage I've caused, he still extends a hand. Daniel, the same man who offered me everything and only asked for my truth in return. I choke out a desperate laugh through my tears. "Why would you do that?" He takes a deep breath, his eyes not quite meeting mine. "Because I loved you. And I don't want to see you like this. No one deserves to be stuck in their own torment." It's a weird comfort that he still feels something. Maybe it's pity, but there's still a flicker of the compassion that drew me to him in the first place. He stands, a signal that our final moment together is closing to an end. "Look, Mary, I've moved on. I've found someone else and we're happy. I really hope you can find some peace too." The words slice through what remains of my dignity. He's moved on. Of course he has. Why wouldn't he? My voice shakes as I speak. I hope you're happy. Truly. We linger for a second longer, maybe both of us sensing the gravity of this farewell. He leaves the apartment with a quiet, final goodbye. The click of the door echoes like a gunshot, the finality hammering home. Alone, truly alone this time, I stare at the signed divorce papers. Daniel's ring lies beside them, a relic of a life left behind. The emptiness floods back, but with it, a strange sense of clarity. The life I wrung dry with my choices lies ahead, and maybe, just maybe, I can piece together some form of redemption. For now, though, I sit in my quiet wreckage, letting it wash over me for the last time. It's time to face the stark future without the ghost of my past decisions weighing me down. Turning towards the bright sliver of light through the window, I wonder if that clarity might lead me to some semblance of healing.